when you want to prevent an ankle sprain, I mean, the injury itself is usually to ligaments, and their function is to stop one bone moving on another too far. So in everyday life and in usual running and in everyday activity, in theory, your ligaments shouldn't be stressed. So it's very difficult to get that ligament warmed up or whatever's needed to be able to cope for the stresses of playing sport. Whereas with a muscle, when you actually get the injury in the muscle itself, it's much easier to get that prepared. Having said that, I would still do a warm-up in terms of prevention of ankle sprains, but this time what you're trying to do is take the ankle through its full motion, through full amount of movement that it can do. And in theory then you're going to at least hopefully get the ligaments to stretch a little bit so that what I would do is what I'm thinking more is they're stimulated so that they're ready for activity rather than being stretched, or rather, because you don't really stretch ligaments or get them warmed up. So that's all I would do in terms of a warm-up in terms of ankle sprains. The main thing with ankles really is proprioception and balance. What you're looking for is at the bottom of your foot there's receptors that basically tell your brain where your foot is when it's walking along. So if you're walking along, if you were to close your eyes and you walk along a road, if you walked along a road full of stone or covered in stones, your brain would tell you that you're walking on a road covered in stones as opposed to walking on a road that was completely flat. And that's how I tend to sort of view it. And that's even with your eyes closed, you know that. And that's what you've got to what you've then got to teach the foot and the ankle is the position it's in. So when your eyes are closed and you're doing something, you're concentrating on something else, the brain and your foot, you know where you are. Your foot knows where it is. And that's very, very, very important, because when it's taken beyond its range, so when you roll an ankle, so if you fall off a curb or anything like that, or in a game of sport, if you roll over your ankle, you as quick as possible, you want your brain to trigger that it's not in its right position, and you want the muscles around it to activate as quickly as you possibly can to get it back to its normal position again. That's where injury occurs. If your brain is too slow, and you haven't trained it enough, the risk of you actually going over on your ankle and causing damage is much higher, which is why away from the training zone and any of your kind of training or playing, you need to work and train the receptors on the bottom of your feet to be as sensitive as possible. So there's loads of exercises that you can do using wobble boards and using inflatable discs, but even something simple like standing, if you're doing the washing up at home or if you're standing waiting for a bus, balance on one leg. And you might look a bit strange, you might get people looking and giving you strange looks, but balance on one leg, even with your eyes open. And that already starts to get the receptors working. If you can, do it with your eyes closed. Spending 10-15 minutes a day doing something as simple as that will make a difference to your ankle, and will get so that you can actually so that your ankle will react quicker. So that for me is the biggest thing out of everything, is getting the proprioception into your ankle. And as I say, there are loads and loads and loads of exercises which you can do, but some are much more complicated than the others and some require much more equipment than the others, but basically that's what you're looking to do. I think you have to be a little bit wary of ankle strappings, and I think the other thing that goes with ankle strappings is, like I said before with the proprioception, what you can actually do is reduce the sensitivity of your ankle by putting a strapping on it, because it almost fools the brain that, oh, it's okay, I've got something protecting me. But actually, in my experience, if you roll over on your ankle, there's no tape out there that will stop you from damaging your ligament. So I actually think you have to be a little bit careful with ankle strappings. Yes, use them early on. If you've had an ankle injury, then yes, I would use an ankle strapping, and then I would slowly try and take more and more off it. So eventually you're not playing with an ankle strapping on. Because as I say, if you go and look in any of the evidence that they've done and any kind of studies they've done, it does not back their use. So I would say be very careful. There are splints out there, there are ankle supports you can use, and maybe they make you feel more comfortable. And part of that, that's what the part of their use is actually making the athlete feel more comfortable and feel like they've got more support. But don't be fooled to think that they're going to stop that injury occurring. So that, for me, they're not an injury prevention. The only other thing I would do then is strengthen the muscles on either side of the ankle. So you might use TheraBand, and you would do inversion and eversion exercises to try and strengthen the muscles. Just like you've got with quads and hamstrings with your knee, and you've got guy ropes there, it's exactly the same with the ankle, with having your muscles on the inside and muscles on the outside. So you might do some TheraBand work to try and get your ankles as strong as possible. People say they have weak ankles. For me, people don't have weak ankles. They have ankles that aren't prepared and ready to be able to do the activity. And this is where it goes back to what I said before about the proprioception and the balance. People don't have weak ankles. If I was to test muscle strength between a person that said they had a weak ankle and somebody that said they had a normal ankle, I don't think there'd be much of a difference. The difference is that one person can't react quick enough. So yes, I would still do the strengthening, but don't be fooled into believing that it will get rid of this kind of weak ankle syndrome. To get rid of weak ankle syndrome, I think what you've got to do is do the proprioception and balance exercises.